Today I'm joined by a composer that the Household of Vision musicians have been very privileged to work with over the past few years, P Carroll. Morning, Paul.
Morning, Stu.
Please tell me, what first sparked your interest in music?
Well, my first memory of live music was attending Trooping the Colour when I was 4 years old, and I was fed to the front of the crowd, so they didn't have the grandstands that they do now, to see my Uncle Paul, who played in the Grenadier Guards band. He later went on to join Johnny Dankworth's band. My first musical experience as such was my father trying to teach me to play the piano when I was 9.
So can you tell us about some of your early musical experiences?
I was born in East London, and I attended the local music school, the Newham Academy of Music, which was run by the council. It's a fantastic opportunity for me. I joined the Newham Youth Orchestra, which meant that some of my music was played by the orchestra, and on one occasion it was conducted by Sir Adrian Boult. The other great thing for me was that it gave me the opportunity to meet girls, because going to a boys only school there were no girls. When I left school in the Newham Academy, I went to the Royal College of Music, where I studied bassoon under Geoffrey Gambold and composition under Philip Cannon.
Wow, quite an achievement to be selected to study at the Royal College. What happened for you after that?
When I left college, I worked as a peripatetic instrumental teacher and as a session musician. In fact, I'd already done my first session when I was still at school, and I'd been phoned up to play for a television advert, and I was booked to play bassoon, but the fixer found that he'd double booked and asked me if I had any other instruments. And I said, well, I've got a very old violin, but not in a good way, but I couldn't play it. And he said, well, it doesn't really matter because it's vision only, so just turn up. So I turned up at the Richmond Theatre bright and early one summer's morning, and was shocked to find that the other string players were from the Philharmonia, BBC Symphony Orchestra, all kinds of eminent orchestras, and they were very kind. The thing was that once they'd seen the violin and stopped laughing, they laughed even more to find that I couldn't actually play it. So they said, well, look, just move your bow at the same time that we do, and we should make it work. And so I moved the bow at the same time, and it did work.
Excellent.
During this time, I supplemented my income by joining the Territorial Army, which was great fun, and led to a strange situation where the night I was supposed to depart for Scotland with my unit, I was booked to play with Frank Sinatra's orchestra for 14 concerts. So there was no choice really. My luggage went to Scotland, and I stayed in London to play 14 concerts at the Festival Hall and the Royal Albert Hall, which was quite an experience, as I'm sure you can imagine. In 1985 I was appointed Professor at the Royal College of Music. And shortly after the appointment I was at a concert at the college, and seated behind me was Kerry Camden, one of the professors of bassoon, with quite a good sense of humour. He leant forward and whispered, "You realise, of course, that William Holston, who was appointed Professor 100 years ago, same age as you, died within a year of his appointment." Once I got over the initial sort of shock, I soldiered on for the next 25 years. Another thing I did during this period was work for the Royal National Theatre as an on-stage musician.
In 2008, you were given the immense privilege of being appointed the Commonwealth Composer in Residence. How did this come about?
In that year, the Commonwealth was celebrating their Diamond Jubilee and asked me to write a piece of music for them. And it turned out to be the Commonwealth Anthem, which was a setting that I made of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. At the same time, I wrote a larger piece for performance, which was the Commonwealth Cantata. This was recorded at Abbey Road Studio by the London Symphony Orchestra, and later premiered at Buckingham Palace in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen and 350 guests. In 2012, I conducted the Commonwealth Youth Orchestra and Children's Choir in front of Her Majesty on at least 15 occasions. During this period and later, I had the opportunity to write a lot of music for a lot of events for the Commonwealth. The most memorable thing I can think of was recording the music for the Queen's Christmas Day broadcast in 2017 with the Commonwealth Orchestra and Children's Choir.
So Paul, How have you collaborated with the musicians of the Household Division over the past 5 years?
Well, my first collaboration was in 2016 with the performance of the Commonwealth Anthem, which I'd written in 2008, performed by the musicians of the Household Division and the Commonwealth Children's Choir. That year was a celebration of the Commonwealth, and as the head of the Commonwealth is the Queen, I wrote a piece in tribute to her, an ode for Her Majesty. The words were by the great Welsh poet Graham Davies, and I also wrote a piece called Jack, which was a celebration of the other part of the piece, which was the centenary of the Battle of Jutland. Now, Jack was Jack Cornwall, who was a sailor, aged 16, who was mortally wounded at the Battle of Jutland, was ferried ashore and died a few days later. And because of his great bravery, he was awarded the Victoria Cross. Now, the piece that I wrote, Jack, the words were also by Graham Davies, and was a celebration of Jack's life. I should say that Jack came from the same area that I was born in, and I've always had a great regard and respect for the bravery of this young man. Later that year, I wrote the Sapphire Jubilee suite of marches, Carnarvon, Windsor, Balmoral and Hillsborough. These all have a national flavour to them and are named after royal palaces. The marches have been used for changing the guard at Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace, and Windsor was performed on the Queen's birthday parade in 2018. Later in the year, to celebrate the 70th wedding anniversary of Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh, I wrote a set of piano pieces, 9 piano pieces called the Windsor Suite. Early this year, I was invited by Lieutenant Colonel Simon Hoare, commanding officer of the Household Division bands, to arrange Purcell's trumpet tune for the musicians of the Household Division, which I did. This was for the Queen's birthday parade, and it was later performed at Windsor Castle in the birthday tribute to Her Majesty.
Well, Paul, thank you very much indeed for taking some time out of your very busy musical schedule to give us just a brief insight into the career of a very successful composer of whom the Household Division musicians are very pleased and very proud to be associated with.
Thank you, Stuart.